Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another tutorial on our space scene endeavors of how to make some fantastical or believable or whatever you want to call them space scenes. I've now got quite a bigger catalog of projects in Unreal Engine 4 and 5 with space, different space scenes, different approaches on how to do things with planets and all sorts of things. And you can actually get all of those from my ArtStation page or my Gumroad page or from Patreon. So feel free to support me if you want. If you want to buy me a coffee, I do enjoy a good coffee. I keep the prices quite low on these items because I want you guys to be able to get them, not to feel like you've spent a lot on them and you were able to learn something, hopefully. I definitely want to learn from you. Your feedback is very valuable. I also have a Discord channel now that you can join. The link is in the description below. You can contact me in there and ask me any questions you've got. We can go through it. I'll give you any feedback that I can. As I said, I'm also looking for constructive feedback. The response to these project files has been incredible from the community. A lot of people have already bought them and they're using them and they're sharing with me their creations, and it's really good. And I'm going to develop this even further. We're going to have volumetrics going forward. We're going to have all sorts of new technology, so to speak, that I'm going to also make tutorials on how you can implement them yourself. So it's not just about you coming in and purchasing a project or a course or whatever from me, and then you're not gonna get what I've done. You're gonna have the actual file that you can just use. And also a tutorial to go along with it. And I think that's what's the most important thing, that you buy a product, but there's also a tutorial that goes along with it in video format on YouTube that you can see, or you can do it from scratch yourself if you want to. And I think that's really, really, really good. So yeah, I think value for money is there. I hope you all agree with that. But this tutorial is about setting up a skybox. I know it's in space, but it's basically a skybox of how to project a nebula texture in 3D space using a Cubemap format or an HDRI. So for anybody who doesn't know what an HDRI is, it's basically those photos that are like a panorama type of photo that is used generally in 3D renders to give more realistic look. But in our case, we're not doing that to make our scene look more realistic. We're doing it so that we have this sort of nice panoramic sort of view of a nebula. And you've seen this in renders that I've made before, but now I'm just showing you how to set this up. I'm also going to give you some information how you can transform a PNG into an HDRI quite easily. And I'm also going to show you how I go about creating an HDRI image that doesn't stretch across, but instead is focused in the center of the image, so that you can still have it in your scene, but again, it doesn't wrap around it, unfortunately, unless you are able to generate an HDRI via a different kind of software like Blender, or I'm sure Houdini can do it, or other 3ds Max and so on. There are ways of creating HDRIs in there, but unfortunately it's not possible with a real-time engine, so you can't use Blender Eevee to generate an HDRI, but you can use cycles. So yeah, let's get to it. I hope you guys enjoy it. Please leave a comment, subscribe, and let's begin. We're going to start off by exploring the scene in Unreal Engine 5. So this is something that you've already seen. I've got it on the marketplace, and also I've made a few renders. Now the skybox has changed, so or space box, whatever you want to call it. It's in space, it's not really a sky, but I've changed that, and I've also changed the planet texture. But it's the actual skybox that we're interested in into this tutorial. So if I come out of the camera view, you can see that this is the skybox. This is the sort of nebula, which I've generated using the nebula from Blender, the project file that I've got from Blender that you can get from my store as well. And then you can generate something like this yourselves. And I'm going to show you, this is basically it. Now, this is an HDRI image, right? This is an HDRI. I'm going to show you how you can set up something like this. Normally, an HDRI, if I go back into Unreal and open another HDRI, I've got a set of HDRIs here. So this is the skybox that I've used previously. and you can see that it's sort of, it's made into a cube map, which means it wraps around the world. And if I actually use that in my material slot, so I'm just double clicking and I'm going to drag that in the color, you can now see this HDRI, which you can see it sort of goes all around the scene, but that's because it's a cube map. And the other one that I had previously, so this is a cube map as well, but the texture parameters for it, so the actual texture is only that amount. Because what if you want to generate a true HDRI map that, whatever happens on the right side of the texture is continued on the left side, so then it's continuous sort of flow, just like in this previous image here. So whatever this end here sort of ends here as well, that's why it makes it continuous. If you want it to look good, then you've got to generate it as an HDRI cube map through a software like Blender, and you can do that through Blender Cycles. Now, the Nebula project that I have offered you guys on the marketplace does not, in fact, it's renderable. You can render it using Cycles, but it's definitely not going to look the same as the one that you've just seen, because you would need to have a particular Nebula made for Cycles, and I am working on that version of the Nebula as well. But until then, you would actually have to make the Nebula in Eevee, extract a PNG render and then just start blacking it all around. So then wherever you've got black, stars will start to show through. You can see them there. But so wherever there's color, you can see it. Wherever there's black, you will just see the stars in the background. This is in a way, this makes it sort of seamless, but not really, because it obviously doesn't continue to any sort of edge. It's just in the middle. And actually, if you can see here in Photoshop, I do have scaled them down quite a bit from what they were, and that's to increase the resolution within the Unreal scene. Otherwise, they'll just be too stretched. Or you can just render them at higher resolutions, but these are already rendered at 4K. And because I've scaled them down, they're actually sort of, retain far higher quality. And again, a lot of people will say, well, I don't really like this nebula because it doesn't move in real time. But the thing is, space doesn't move this fast. So whatever you're seeing here with these particles and these Niagara particles and these meshes moving around, they actually wouldn't move at this speed anyway. So you wouldn't be able to see them in that way. So everything in this particular scene or any other scene that I've done is, greatly exaggerated, right? But that's the whole point. I mean, I've got an alien world here. Of course it's going to be exaggerated. That's the whole thing. That's what I'm trying to achieve, right? So it's exaggerated, and the nebula there doesn't move, but this gas cloud will be so far off into the distance that it wouldn't really matter. I am going to explore creating nebulas in volumetrics as well in the future, but this is not something that I'm going to do today. But that's really it. Now, the important part of this tutorial, I mean, you can get a texture like this from, even from other websites, or again, you can generate it via that Nebula project in Blender that I've given you. If not, as I've said, you can find textures online, you can find HDRIs, but what's important is the material itself. So the material that drives all of this. And if I sorry, not that one. This is the material. So if I open it, we're going to set up this material node, which will allow you to have a nice, you can see how this is sort of functioning, right? This cube map, because of how the material is set up. It's like its own little sort of world inside. It renders the texture in 3D space. So that's what the Cubemap is all about. That's how the HDRIs function as well. So this is going to be quite useful for you, because then, as I've said, you can just get HDRI packs just like I have, and you can then just drop them into your world and make them look so much nicer, so much cooler, basically, because you can have any real effect. I'm also going to show you how you can generate a PNG into an HDRI, quite simple as well. So in order to do that, really, you go onto a website like this, and this website is called convertio.co. I've just searched for it on Google. All you would really do here is, let me just go back, you just drop in your file and you select what you want to convert it to, because you've got other options in here as well. But you want to do, for example, a PNG to an HDR, you do that, you convert it, it's free of charge, and you can download your image, which remains at the same resolution as you put it on, and that's it, it's ready to use. So the PNG that you've created, you've exported through Blender or whatever, you could literally convert it into an HDR and then drop it into Unreal. So let's start the tutorial in terms of the material. The actual Skybox is just a mesh. So if we double click it, what we'll see here is that it's just a sphere. And I'm serious about it just being a sphere. It's a subdivision level sphere. So you can pretty much make that in any sort of 3D software. You can see how it's unwrapped as well. So nothing fancy about this particular sphere, right? And if I close that, this is our Skybox. I'm just going to take the material out. There's no longer any material within it. And all you're seeing right now in the air are just these asteroids flying around and these Niagara particles, which I've shown you guys how to make in previous tutorials. You can also purchase these if you want. But we'll make a new material. So I'm just gonna go in here, just create a new folder, and just type it in as tutorial. Double click it, and then we want to just make a new material. Skybox, doesn't really matter what you name it as. We're just going to double click it and then bring it over in here. There's nothing, we can already allocate it if we want to. So let me just do that. I can drag and drop it. Unfortunately, this is a bit weird. Let me just try and drop it over into the, okay, so I've managed to drop it in the Skybox star system as I have it in here. So let me just bring that material back. Okay, first thing we would definitely want to do is make sure that the Skybox itself, the material, is set from surface to, leave it to surface, but from default lit to unlit. And this just gives us access to the emissive color, and that's really all we need in here. The first thing I want to make sure is that my sun can pass through it. So in order to do that, we can search for a node called Sky Atmosphere. It's one of these, so it's light scattered, it's light disk luminance. So you bring in this node and you put an add node in here. You connect it into the A value, and then this goes into the emissive color. So this will already allow for the sun to pass through, and you can see it, right? It's happening now. It allows the sun to pass through it, like it's not in the way ever. It's not blocking it. I'm going to control copy this add button, this add node here, and I'm going to connect it into this one. And then I just need another one, because we're going to do one add node is going to be for, so this point here will connect to our sort of star fields. And this one will be all about the nebula itself. Now, from this point, okay, we're not going to do the stars first. We're going to do the other ones, the sort of the nebula texture. So we need a multiply node to be added. This can connect to the B value. And then we need 3 colors to, so number 3, keep the 3 button on your keyboard, press it and left click, and this will add this black color. You can connect that to the, to the A value, not the B. So connect that to the A value. What is it, the B? Can't remember now. I think it's the B. Let's just leave it with the B. In case it's wrong, we'll just get back to this. And then we want to do a saturation node, and this goes into the A value, and a 1 minus, we need a 1 minus X. So you literally type in 1 minus, and that will bring you an 1 minus X. You put that in your saturation node, and this one will leave here for now. We can now connect this add node. It goes into this add node, and then this A value needs to go somewhere else. So I'm going to multiply the add node again. There's quite a lot of adding nodes together, quite a bit. You see this 1 minus X here is an error because it actually needs something to feed into it, but that's fine. We're gonna get to it. What we need is another saturate node over here, which we connect in the B value of this add value that we put first. We then want to add a subtract, and this is going to connect to the star field later on, because we do want to make sure that the star field is visible through the texture that we're adding. So I'm just going to put that subtract over in the saturate node. And this subtract will leave, well, we can connect it now to a power node. So we've got power. We can put this into our B value. Well, it doesn't matter A or B, just leave it there for now. But then it also connects into the 1 minus X. And this power node then goes into a multiply. So we put that over and connect the base. And the power stays at times, at a value, a constant exponent of 2. We'll just leave it like that. Over in here, we want to add a texture sample, and we need to connect the R channel to the A value and leave the multiply to 5. Like that. Now this is saying that it requires a missing, a texture, but that's fine. We don't need to put a texture in it as of yet. I mean, we can. We just need to add a 2D texture sample. No, sorry, not that. I want to add a texture object, actually, like that, and then I want to convert this to parameter, and we can call it texture alpha. Basically, this is an alpha. You see it's already defaulted to a texture, but that's fine. We'll replace that. And we want to put this into the texture field. We also want to make sure these are set to linear colors, both of them. And then just apply. Ignore the errors for now. That's not really a problem as of yet. We can also duplicate these two, and put them sort of further up here. And now we want to create the nodes where, this subtract needs to connect to something as well, and this add node needs to connect to something as well. The subtract will be, as I said to you, will be connected to the star field, but this add node will connect to a desaturate node, so desaturation, like that. And we've got two things in here. We've got one node to connect it, and also a fraction. The fraction, we're going to do a bit of we're going to have a parameter that feeds into it. So I need to duplicate the add node and put it over into the fraction. And the add node, we can add a value of 1 to the A value. So this just stays that way. It's 1. And then over in here, want to add a new value, which will convert to a parameter. And we're going to call it saturation. This will control our saturation about the color of the nebula. And we also want to bring in a multiply node. This multiply node goes into the B value, and the saturation goes into the A value. And we can leave it as, well, we're going to put it a -1 in here for the multiply. So that sorts out the the saturation of this whole thing. You can have a default value here if you want. So we can put default value to 1. And you can press apply just to make sure that you save the material as well. And then we need another power node. So Control W to duplicate it, bring it up here, connect it. And we got a base, and I think the AXP is like, the constant exponent value. So we can create a new number, right click, convert to parameter, and call it intensity. So you can do an intensity or power or whatever you want to call it. We put that over in the exponent, and we'll leave a default value of 1. And then we need to connect the base, but let me just bring this texture node further to the left, like that. And we've got the power here, and we need an append node. So I'm just going to type in append. So it's basically appending two vectors together. We connect that into the base. And now we need the append to connect to another append. We're basically going to split all of these channels. You see the RGB, we're going to split it all. So we need a multiply node. Well, actually we need 3 multiply nodes, 1 for each channel, like that. So the R channel goes into A, the green channel goes into A, and this one goes over here. which is great. And now we want to add 3 parameters. 1, 2, 3. Convert. So we want to convert it to parameter, and we can call it red channel. So this can play around with the red intensity, and we will leave it as a base value of 1. Actually, I'm just going to delete these and just duplicate this one. But then I'm going to call this blue channel. That means I need to bring it further down. And this I'm going to call a green channel. So as you can imagine, the green channel will connect where the green channel is and the blue channel where the blue channel is. We've got all these multiplies together. We can append these two, and then this one can append over here. So now they're all sort of linked together. We can press apply, and that's great. Now you can see we no longer have an error as well. What we're also got to understand that we're going to use the camera data to work out where to make this sort of thing render like a cube map. So what we want to do is we need a texture sample that we're going to multiply and bring it over in here, and then this the sort of the UVs of this will feed into a multiply. And the multiply, we can put it as a constant of -1 on the B value. And then we want a transform position. The transform position needs to be from an absolute world space to local space. But though I think the transform position is not the right one, I need a transform vector. So transform, yeah, this is the one, transform vector. So we can connect that into the A value, but as I said, we want to do world space to local space, and then we also want to add in a camera vector, and the camera vector feeds into this vector. Okay, and then we hit apply. Now we need to connect this this texture as well, the one that we just created. So we need a multiply node, bring that over in here. And I need a power node, so I'm just going to take the one from above over here. Okay, now looking at this power node, I just realized, no, yeah, we'll leave it at that. So we've got these two over here, which is fine. We can put the R value into the A, and then this goes into the base. We'll leave it as 2, but then this value we'll put it as a 5. Okay, and we can now apply it. This power node, I'm just gonna have to see where this links into. Actually, I've just realized I don't need a power node here. I'm just gonna bring these down, and I'm also going to duplicate them. I want to put this multiply node in all the UVs, so that one, and then this one as well. You're seeing we're getting an error on this. We've got them all set up. Well, we need all of them to be set up as linear color. The reason why we're getting an error is because the texture that feeds into them is not a cube map. That's basically why we're getting an error. And these are linear, which is great. That's what we need. We want we want the multiply, we want the desaturate node over here, and then this multiply can feed into it. We want another desaturate node over here, and this multiply can feed into this one as well. And we want to add 2 parameters. Convert to parameter. We're gonna call these stars underscore far, and then we're going to convert this into a parameter. I'm gonna call them stars underscore near. We can then put these into each of the fractions of the desaturation node. We've got the 2 textures, which is great. The UVs of this has to connect in here as well, like that. We do need another 2 of these, so I'm just going to bring them down here. Make sure it's a linear color, and then hook that over into text. the texture, do the same for this one. And then these two multiply nodes, we will create, well, this, we'll leave this as 0, but we're going to create a copy of this one and link it over into the multiply. And then we want to call this star for intensity. And we'll put that maybe at a 1, value of 1. And then this one, again, copy, and we're going to call this stars near intensity. Leave it as a value of 1, but you can play around with these values later on based on your preferences of how visible you want the stars to be. So these stars, they will connect into this add over here, and this one is going to connect into this subtract all the way up here. Okay, and in theory, I think this should be done. So let me just apply it. We still get an error, but that's fine. What we can do now is in the content browser, which I've got here, we can select this texture. Where's the content browser? God, I've lost my content browser. Unreal. Yeah, definitely Unreal. Okay, there it is. So I'm just going to keep it to one side. You can see it over here. I'm just going to drag. I want to drag this texture into here. And you can see it's now loaded it. Now this is for an alpha. And by the way, I have not named this, so I should name this to a texture or something like that. Remember, it's a parameter, so if we create a material instance out of this, that will be classed as a parameter. We need an alpha. So in Photoshop, the way you would make an alpha out of this, you could go, especially because it's say this an HDRI, you go to edit. Oh, sorry, to image, to where was it now? Can't see it. It's not really letting me edit it. Could not use paint bucket because no layers are selected. Well, I don't want to use the paint bucket. I want to go in here. I think you'd have to flatten it, but basically you've got a desaturate option. So I've just desaturated one of them, and then I can go back into image adjustments and desaturate again. You basically need to turn it into a black and white. Now, if you merge these two images together, which you obviously can right click and just say merge layers, now they're together, we could still go to here and go to brightness and contrast, and I would increase the brightness and increase the contrast and the brightness and something like that. And then you would save this texture. So, wherever you want to save it, and then you would drop it into here. Now, why is this important? This helps with the stars to show up over there a lot more intensely if you add an alpha. If you don't, that's fine, but this is just a step for that if you want to do it. Now, because as you can see, the alpha communicates with the stars over here. So in this one, I've just got some stars off the internet that you can put. Again, you can use even the Milky Way one. So, but the Milky Way one needs to be first converted in HDRI. As you can see, the format of this is actually DXT1, so that won't work if I try and drag that in. Error, right? You can see that because it's not a cube map. So if I drop, this one, it's fine, and then I can drop it in here as well, and I can apply. And then if I take, get out of this over in here, I can see, well, I can't see anything at the minute, it seems. Let's just have a look to see why that's happening. I think the first thing we want to do is we want to create, so let me just browse to the asset. This is it. I'm just going to create a material instance and drag that into the Skybox with the material instance out. So these are all the sort of the settings here. I can have a look at some of the options. The most important one for me really is the intensity, because that sort of does so much. Like if you put that to a 0.5, it brightens it a lot. One reason why this is not showing, and it's clearly looking to work in the material, is because our material itself, so let me just I'm trying to bring back the material, but I think I can just go into the hierarchy here. Yeah, I'll just go in the hierarchy and select it. So this will, this is the material. In the material that we created, we select this and make sure you got two-sided on, and then just press apply. And now you can see it. But because we set the power level so high, so the lower you go, the brighter it becomes. So you want to increase it maybe to a 1, and you can see that now shows up properly, the way it should. And you can see those stars over there, but they're quite big, so you may want to reduce that. It really all depends on what type of stars you're loading in. So these stars look to be quite big because I've used a texture of stars that were quite big. So if I go back to my textures, and then, but you can change these in here, as you can see, you know, the alphas, the texture if you want, but the stars you can't. The stars you've actually got to go inside the material. So let me just bring that back. You can make these into, obviously you can turn these into parameters and you can then do that, but I'll just put, so for stars near, which is this one, I'm going to add a different texture, and I'm going to press apply and then have a look at the scene again. I think I may need to play. So this is bringing up the sort of those stars from beyond, but then we also got an intensity of the ones that are quite close. So you can see how I can make them a lot more intense, but I can also make them a lot less intense, which then just sort of helps with selling the scene a bit more. Again, if you want to make this bluer, you can do that if you want. You can see, you can make it greener, redder, or you can play around with the saturation, make it incredibly colorful, or you know, turn it into a sepia, or just go black and white if you want to. So that's really how you set up the skybox. And if you want to change the position of the texture, you can do that via the material itself. So if we go back into the material, this is this multiply, and it can only work between two sides. So if I put a 1 here, it will move it. So it's moved it over there. And then if you put it back to -1, it will move it back to what it was. But that's about it, really. You can make many adjustments to this. And one thing to note, by the way, this I think is very important. When you bring in the textures, so this texture, make sure you open it before you use it as a cube map, because let me just close these. So you open the texture. So over here you've got MIP gen settings. This will be by default from texture group. And if I show you now, this is how it's going to look like. Terrible, right? It's just blurry, a blurry mess. So you've got to make sure that that is set to no MIP maps, and then you can see it's high quality, and then it will work quite well for you. Yeah. But I hope you guys really enjoyed the tutorial today. Please feel free to leave a comment, subscribe, and feedback is really, you know, something that I strongly need to improve these scenes further. I will be releasing more content soon, more space scenes that I'm working on right now, you know, developing them every day, pretty much making a few more steps further of improving my catalog of projects. But as I said, if you want to support me, you can go on my ArtStation or Gumroad and then purchase the projects there, or you could become a Patreon, and then you would have access to all of these project files as well. I do hope this has helped you. It has definitely been an experience for me to put these together, and I can't wait to have the Blender project file that works with cycles to generate really high quality nebulas as well. That it can turn. So Blender does have this function when you're using cycles to make HDRIs directly, which I think is just phenomenal. But you can't do it in Blender Eevee, unfortunately. You have to be in Blender cycles. But I'll see you guys in the next tutorial that I'm working on already. It's going to be quite an interesting one, so stay tuned for that. For the time being, I'll leave you guys with this new one. I hope you can use all the things that you've learned today to, you know, further develop your scenes and make them more fantastical or realistic. It really all depends on how you're going to employ this. If you can develop this material even further, please let me know. I am quite interested if anybody has a solution on how to make it pan around, or even if we can load MP4 media in it. That would be quite interesting as well. So I'll see you guys in the next one, and take care.